Hi, this is Tom Soane, and welcome to another episode of The Anonymous Landlord. And today, you are in for a real treat because my guest today will call herself Swansea's lettings expert. But Hannah is so much more than that. She's the queen of lettings. She's the queen of Airbnb and holiday lets, but she is one of the hardest working women in property. And she's a mum, a wife, a property investor, a landlady, an entrepreneur. How the hell does she do all of this? I will let her tell you how she manages all of that. But for now, I am so pleased and so chuffed to introduce to you the legendary Hannah McCarten of McCarten Lettings. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Wow, what an intro. I'm really honoured for that intro. Yes.
Did I get all of that right, though?
You did, actually. And yeah, I guess I don't really think about all of the things that I get to do of a day. So when you put it in like that, I am pretty busy, yeah. And it does take a lot of hard work and determination to get everything done, really, isn't it? And make sure everyone's taken care of at the end of the day.
Well, that's why I'm so pleased to have you here, so that you can share your knowledge and insights and opinions, and we can have a bit of a rant if we want to. And I'm sure we will.
Love a good rant.
Oh, yes. Well, look, so today, for everybody listening to this, we're going to talk about investing in holiday lets. Some people call it serviced accommodation. Some people call it Airbnbs. Some people call it short lets. Whatever we're going to call it, I'm going to call it serviced accommodation. So we're going to have a chat through that. We're going to talk through landlord licensing. Now, if you switch off to that immediately, let me just warn everybody that landlord licensing is coming. It means you are going to have a license, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord. So Hannah's going to introduce that to you because it's currently in place in Wales. So we'll talk through that and what you can look out for and not look out for. And we're also going to talk about Hannah's journey as an investor and also as a letting agent with some top tips for property investors. You up for that, Hannah?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right, first of all then, let's talk about serviced accommodation. And the reason I want to talk about this is because it's a bit of a buzz. There's high returns and lots of cash going around, and it's very popular and people are really getting into it. So, I'll tell you what, first of all, before we get into it, would you mind giving us a quick introduction to what serviced accommodation actually is, for anybody that doesn't know?
Sure, yeah, no, of course. So yeah, serviced accommodation is short lets. So in essence, you are creating your rental property to like a hotel standard, and you advertise it on sites like Airbnb or Booking.com. People will book to stay in your property then for like 3 nights, 5 nights, a week maybe, and then they will leave. And you change the property over then, so you've got hotel linen, you've got little toiletries and things like that there for them. So it's really like a home from home situation for guests. But from a landlord's perspective, you're kind of dealing with like a high intensity kind of changeover of tenancies every 3 or 5 days. There's a lot involved, but yeah, completely different model to the long let. But really exciting at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like I say, there are some people that maybe want to invest in property, and there's loads of options, loads of ways you can invest. So that's a good insight into what serviced accommodation or short lets, holiday lets, or whatever we're calling it. I'm going to call it serviced accommodation, whatever it actually is. So, okay, so let's look at the investments themselves, if you don't mind. And in your opinion, what sorts of properties do you think people can invest in that could become holiday let, serviced accommodation? Or what would you recommend investing in? What types of properties do you like to see being invested in?
Well, that's kind of like the $1 million question, isn't it? I guess you've got landlords coming into your office, same as I have, and they're asking this question. And I actually always respond with, it all depends on what your needs are as an investor. What is it that you want to achieve by buying property, isn't it, at the end of the day? And that will determine what you buy. However, without going into a whole hoo-ha about that in too much detail, in a nutshell, you've got to be looking at properties in areas that are going to have really high demand. Now, obviously, that's something that I, go online and I do all the research and got all the data from. But also, you kind of got to go with gut feeling as well, isn't it? If you've got a 2-bedroom apartment on the beachfront overlooking the sea, you're kind of going to think, yeah, people are probably going to want to stay here on a short-let basis for work or travel. It's really drilling down onto the demographics of what type of guest is going to want to stay in this property. So service accommodation isn't just about holiday lets or the contractor market. It's encompassing it all. So yeah, really looking at what is around that property and what that property can offer a guest is going to be critical in deciding whether or not that's going to be a good purchase or not. But what I'm finding is really interesting at the moment is landlords are asking me to review their entire portfolio to see which ones would be good to diversify into Airbnb. So you say about, what would be good to invest in. Well, you might actually already own it. So we're really looking at how can we increase the property portfolio's value by switching its strategy. So there's two sides of that question, really. But yeah, look at your local area, your market, and think, okay, why do people come here? And if in doubt, pick up the phone and give me a call, because I'll be able to tell you straight away. Or your local, like Pass the Keys agent who I'm with for the short let, or anyone else who's into short lets. Get the information first. Don't just make it up in your own head and you think, oh yeah, I'm sure that'll be fine. And yeah, I'm sure, like looking on Airbnb, that property's achieving £200 a month, I'm sure mine will. Get the facts first from an independent source. So
yeah, I like that. So because really we're all holiday goers, aren't we? So you could say, well, where would I want to go and take a short let, stay in a cottage or an apartment by the sea or a little house somewhere? Where would I want to go? But also the demand, universities and NHS and I don't know, all those sorts of places. That's good advice. Yeah, I like that.
And family as well. So the prime example, here in Wales now, we've got restrictions of 6 people. So if I wanted my family to come over and visit, like my sister, who is not in my bubble, and her kids, they wouldn't be allowed to stay in our house.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get them an Airbnb down the road. And we can meet outside still, but we can't meet indoors. So, again, like Christmas coming up. Do I want them in my house? Well, I didn't want them in my house to begin with anyway. It's too much, isn't it? It's too overcrowded. Let's stick them in an Airbnb. Happy days. So there's emerging markets coming about, isn't it? Like if people are more and more aware that they can have a whole house to myself that's going to be professionally cleaned. I don't have to think about the linen. It's going to be looking really pretty and it's going to be a great place to stay. Why not just spend, which would be a hell of a lot less than a hotel? So there's a lot more coming to it as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Good insight there. And also, there is quite a different type of investment with serviced accommodation, isn't there? Because, with a rental property, standard rental property, you buy it, you rent it out, and you've got a tenant in there for, say, 8 years, and they're just going to pay their rent every single month, no problem. So you know what you're getting month on month, all bar any problems with the tenant. But with what sort of return on investment can you expect from an Airbnb, and what sort of things would we need to look out for if we're going to invest in an Airbnb, or if we've got one already that we want to turn into an Airbnb? What sort of return can we look to achieve, and what do we need to watch out for?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. So when we say, sort of broadly speaking, you should be able to achieve about 50% more than what you would get on standard let. So that's kind of like the baseline of what we want to be achieving. Obviously, the setup of it is going to have a higher investment, I guess, because you're going to have the beds, the crockery, the duvets. You've got to have a load of spare duvets and things like that. Obviously, wardrobes, appliances. It all has to be there, and it all, looking on point as well. So once the setup is done, then you need to factor in that you've got all the bills to pay as well. So that's council tax, gas, electric, water, Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is like water these days, isn't it? If you don't have Wi-Fi, you ain't letting it out on Airbnb. Tough, not happening. So you've got to factor in those overheads as well then. But I mean, you can do it yourself as well on Airbnb, or you can get a management company in. And having an Airbnb managed, we're looking at achieving 20% more on what you would actually be doing it yourself, because we're like your management team behind the scenes, isn't it? And we're going to absolutely maximize your income by looking at the daily rates, making sure they're optimized against occupancy levels, and just making sure that we're achieving those numbers. So financially, hugely rewarding without any of the liability of long let, the hassle of the 24-hour nature that is Airbnb. It is 24 hours. They do expect you to get back to a guest within 2 hours. So an inquiry comes in at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday, you have to get back to them before midnight. I've got a guest support team who work 24/7. So that's, you know, the benefits of having it managed, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a hugely rewarding place to go with your portfolio or your investment. I wouldn't necessarily say though that all properties are going to work. You have to be quite sort of pragmatic that a 1-bedroom flat in, I don't know, the Welsh Valleys probably isn't going to be as well received on Airbnb as a 1-bedroom flat in the marina overlooking the sea. So don't put all your eggs in one basket is what I'm saying here. It needs to have some sort of serious thought as to whether or not a property will work. But if it is in the right location, looking the right way and managed in the right way, then hugely rewarding.
Yeah, great. And it's exciting as well. And I think, you know, the dangers are levels of occupancy, of course, you know, because you won't have it occupied 100% of the time. I know when I used to work in a hotel years ago, we're going back some time here, but there was a big target on occupancy levels. And if your occupancy was below target, you would drop the hotel rate to make sure your occupancy comes up. And it was only ever about 80%. So I guess it's the same with, well, I know it's the same with serviced accommodation. What would you hope for as a good occupancy level and a bad occupancy level?
Yeah, great question, because it does all come down to occupancy and also nightly rates, of course, because you know that you can have 100% occupancy 12 months of the year if you put your property on for £10 a night.
Yeah.
So it's optimizing, isn't it, the nightly rate against the occupancy and try and get that sweet point there. So I'm really looking at averaging at about 65 to 70%
Great.
over a 12-month period. I mean, here in Swansea, historically, we've been hugely seasonal. So last January, I was over the moon to get 12% occupancy, because let's be real about this, who's coming to Swansea in the middle of January? It's not the most exciting place in the world, you know. But, you know, we've still got people visiting for family or maybe odd work trip that needs to be done. But people are kind of like settling down, aren't they, after Christmas? So it's pretty dire. The weather's not great here. But come August, you know, we were, I mean, this past August was a bit crazy, of course, but we were up to like 98% in about 48 hours when Airbnb opened. So it was bonkers busy. So yeah, I mean, when coronavirus lockdown hit, that was really hard for a lot of landlords on Airbnb, because of course we had to just close our doors and just lock the properties up, and you have zero occupancy. You know, will we ever have that again? We just need to plan for, if we have localized lockdowns, how are we going to manage that really? So yes, a lot of landlords did then convert back onto long let to have that income stability. So it's having the mindset that yes, this is going to fluctuate. We've got more challenges with coronavirus than what we had before. But the positives are that coronavirus has given us is that nobody really wants to stay in a hotel anymore and have that shared breakfast experience with other people. It's not really gonna fly, is it? Young kids, we both got young kids, the sort of going on a plane with them. I mean, I just think how scary that would be for them. Now with everyone being heat checked and masks and stuff, it's just not a fun holiday experience. So we're going to be looking for holiday destinations, a staycation market. So you've got to embrace the potential what's the word I'm looking for?
Volatility.
It can be very volatile. Volatility, that's it. Yeah, so there are huge risk factors, but there should always be, because you're only sort of ever one stay away from your next booking, you should be able to claw it back at marketing, changing strategies. We had, if I can go off on a little tangent, it's my best story of the summer so far. I had a landlord phone me up from his holiday in Spain and say, Han, I heard on the grapevine that Gower is like really popular at the moment for Airbnb. And I went, yeah, oh my God, like Gower's just been named the best staycation place in the whole of the UK. Yes, it's popular. Everything's booked out. Can't get anything on the Gower right now. He said, I'm selling my house in 6 weeks, 4 beds, detached, renovated. He's a landlord, developer, investor, massive in property here in South Wales. So I knew the standards of his house was going to be on point. And he said, what do you think I can get? I thought, oh, give me an hour. Let me just think about this. And I was like, right, £450 a night. £450 a night. And he was like, go on then. So not only, he said, well, I can't leave until you've got me a booking. And we literally had a booking within 24 hours. So I said, if you can get out of your house in 3 days, we'll list it and we'll get £450 a night. And we got that consecutively, 3 weeks consecutively for him. Honest to God, what a rush. What a rush. Because it was cheaper than a hotel. You know, family with older teenage children on the Gower, ideal. After 3 weeks, we realized, hold on a second, we haven't got another booking coming in. What are we going to do? Change strategy, change the avatar of our guest. Okay, we're now going for like walking holidays. They might not want a fixed week. Let's reduce the nightly rates down, reduce the price. And suddenly our occupancy went up. And yes, he wasn't achieving necessarily as much as he was getting for a full week at 450. But again, we extended the stay for an extra week, the calendar. He's kind of made that back. So yeah, it's about having the creative mind with it. You can't just have a property on Airbnb, list it like you would on Rightmove and go, oh, £500 a week and hope that bookings are going to come in. You've got to be on it every single day. So it is really time consuming. I guess that's another one of the downsides really for any landlord wanting to do this himself, is the time element is massive. But again, hugely rewarding when you do go bold and scary and go, oh, yeah, we're going for this, and then you get it. So you're like, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to look at it across the whole year, haven't you? You've hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, you can advertise it at 450, and you'll get bombarded. And then when the demand drops, and you leave it at 450, then you're only shooting yourself in the foot. So you might have it empty for a month because you've left it at 450. But just by dropping it down to 350, you'll have it full for that month. So yeah, you're right. Staying on it from start to finish it's the same in regular lettings, isn't it? Standard lets or single lets. That really, if you're going to do it yourself, you have to stay on it. Maybe not to the level of holiday lets, but certainly got to stay on it. But I was going to ask you actually quite an interesting one. Let's just say, right, let's just make this up on the spot. Let's just say I've got a 2-bedroom house in the Gower, because it sounds exciting. I've never been there, so now I'm really interested in taking a trip. But and luckily I know someone in the industry, so I might be able to get a first refusal.
Yeah, you have
so I've got a 2-bedroom house in the Gower, and it's currently just a normal let. Tenants have moved out, and I want to turn it into a serviced accommodation or a holiday let. How much do I need to spend on a regular 2-bedroom house to bring it up to the right standard for a serviced accommodation? Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, if it's a standard a standard rental, we would expect it to be a reasonable condition anyway. And again, if you're sort of talking sort of Swansea West, Mumbles, you know, those kind of places, those properties usually are. So we're going to go like instantly, full redeck, deep clean, carpet clean, probably oven clean, that kind of like setup. And then your soft furnishings, sofas if it's not already furnished. So, you know, ballpark about £5,000 to get it set up. Probably. I mean, that's just going back from my how to furnish a house on a long let kind of budget. Yeah, you're going to need all like little extras and stuff like that. But we're only talking like hundreds of pounds, not tens of thousands of pounds. Yeah. So not that much.
That's really interesting, actually, isn't it? Because if you're going to, let's say I'm just plucking these figures out of thin air, but let's say that 2-bedroom house currently rents out for £800 a month, but I'm going to get a net profit of £1,600 a month by doing serviced accommodation, then my £5,000 investment all of a sudden becomes quite minimal.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
There's a little top tip for any investors. If you've got a property portfolio, you should talk to Hannah and find out which ones are recommended for holiday lets. I like that. I keep flitting, by the way, between holiday let and serviced accommodation. I don't know what to call it. Yeah.
And just to add a little bit on that as well, everyone goes, oh, dreaded IKEA. Oh, I don't want to go to IKEA, blah, blah, blah. Apart from James, my husband, you know, James, he loves IKEA. However, there are companies out there. We got one here in Swansea called Let Us Furnish. And I can phone Tyvee and the owner there. And within 48 hours, we can furnish an entire house with exactly what it needs to be as an Airbnb. Brilliant. So, yes.
What company is that? What company is it?
Let Us Furnish.
Let Us Furnish. Do they do UK wide or just over in your area?
Good question. He'd say yes to UK wide. Everything these days, isn't it, online?
Yeah.
With an extra delivery charge, I would think. I'm going to get commission now. I'm not on commission. I need to phone him.
No, but
I'm like, oh, thanks.
I'm always up for using local. If we can go local business, I'm always up for that, especially at the moment, you know.
Definitely. But it just goes to show you don't even need to put in that much time.
Yeah.
So you've got your budget and just go, right, I need this 3-bed townhouse on the marina furnished. I need pictures on the wall, pretty lamps, go. And you literally just pick a theme off the website and it is done within a couple of days. We can list it then. A couple of days later, you've actually got somebody in there paying you £100 a night, £150 a night. You know, so it's time is money, isn't it? The quicker you've made the decision, the quicker you get it on Airbnb, the quicker you're going to get a return on that investment. If you're bloody driving all the way down to IKEA and all the way back again, and then building all of the stuff, and then you've got marital issues because you're rowing at each other, that's not a cool investment decision.
It's
Get
not
somebody else to do it.
It's not very anonymous landlord, is it?
Yeah, well, exactly.
But it's true. Look, I mean, it's a bit gimmicky, yeah, but what you're describing is the Airbnb or the holiday let version of the anonymous landlord. In that, what's the point in having money and getting money from property if you've got no time or energy, or you're too stressed to bloody enjoy it? And that's the point, isn't it? And it's not just about go and get a managing agent and leave it to them. It's about having everything automated and systemized so that, like for me, for an example, my mortgage advisor, he knows that when my mortgage is due for renewal, he's already going to be instructed. I don't need to remember it myself. My lettings team, all right, it's my own company, but my lettings team, they know what parameters they can follow without involving me. And they do their job and leaves me to do mine. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I waffled on a little bit there. We'll come back to the anonymous landlord bit in a minute. But it's really interesting that you've said that if you've got a property now, £5,000 will double your income. And I mean, that's really interesting. But what I'd like to know, all right, let's say I don't have a property right now, but I want to invest in property and I like the look of holiday lets. how would I find a good holiday let investment? What would I be looking for? All right, we talked about demand, location, but how do you suggest I go and find them?
Well, I guess that all comes down to, again, like what the end goal is really, isn't it? And, you know, budget is going to be kind of crucial in that as well. So typically you could find that a holiday let or serviced accommodation might be a little bit more expensive than your standard kind of buy to let first go. I guess, again, it's just being really, really clear in your mind what it is that you are looking for. So, and it comes down to the numbers at the end of the day, isn't it? So yes, we know that you're going to get a higher yield with the holiday lets, but, you know, how much have you got to invest? Because that is going to be then fundamental in what areas that you look in. Yeah. So here in Swansea, we've got a massive sort of diverse range of property prices. So on one side of the town, you've got by the football stadium, you can still pick up properties for 70 grand, a 2-bedroom terrace, 70 grand, right? They've been 70 grand since 2003, 2004. On the other side, we've got Mumbles, and, you know, 2-bedroom terrace there is going for 275,000. And there is literally less than 10 miles between the two. It is bonkers. Like 10 minutes drive that way for me, I'm looking at a 70 grand house. 10-minute drive that way, I'm looking at a 275 grand house. So it's really, I guess, immersing yourself in the market of your local market of what is out there and what property prices are.
Yep.
And if you've got a clear vision that, okay, I've got about up to 150k potentially, 25% deposit, stamp duty, all of those costs taken into consideration. What can I get for 150 grand? Okay, I could be looking at a 1-bedroom flat. I could be looking at a 2-bedroom house in the city centre maybe. So again, there's quite a few different property types that will work well with Airbnb. It's just having the vision of what you can make that property look like. And yeah, what kind of demographic of guests that property then would attract.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of guesswork in it, but yeah, I'd say sort of go out there and just really have a look around what is out there, and go on Airbnb as well and see what properties are available. There's one massive caveat with that, in that if you can see a property on Airbnb, it means it's not let. So you have to kind of take that with a bit of a pinch of salt as well. AirDNA is a good resource. You do have to pay for that as a monthly subscription, but if you're really serious about drilling down onto the stats, AirDNA is a really good website, because you'll be able to see what properties have rented over the course of the past 12 months. It's completely skewed now because of COVID. It's showing that I think 17% occupancy is forecast for next June in the Gower. And I was like, can somebody please fix this? So again, that kind of comes with a bit of a pinch of salt. You have to, but you can see anyway what's been achieved before. So if you've got a property, 2-bedroom Mumbles, you can put the street name in and it'll say, well, actually, here are some similar properties in similar area, and see what they achieved last year. So okay. Yeah, research and conversations.
Yeah, and it's daunting to a lot of people that aren't already in property. I mean, you and I have the benefit where we've been in property for years. We're investors and landlords ourselves, and we've got letting agencies. But so we can kind of see it. Yeah, so we can see it from all sides. But there are so many people that I speak to, and we might be setting out a strategy, an investment strategy, for an example. And in fact, yesterday I did a 5-year investment strategy for a lady. She's got 2 properties in her portfolio. She wants to grow it. So we went through an investment strategy, a 5-year plan, so she could just basically stop work. So she had enough income coming in from multiple properties to, what is it they call it? Financial freedom. That's the buzzword, isn't it? Financial freedom. There you go. However, she dropped in, should I get into holiday lets? And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. Because down in my way, you've got university, you've got the dockyard, you've got a massive industry down here, massive NHS, and also it's a seafront town. So, we've got a big Airbnb following. So anyway, I've gone through a few things with her, and she got a bit panicky because you've got to change the linen so often, you've got to keep it clean every day, you've got to do so much to manage it. And anyway, and then she said, oh, maybe I'll just go for the single lets. So let me put that over to you and ask you, what would you say are I'm going to umbrella it, warnings, challenges, mistakes that you've seen that other people can learn from serviced accommodation?
Ooh, big question. Okay, well, we'll start from the listing to begin with. So not having the right listing, not having the right structure of team behind you. So cleaners, linen providers, and that's an absolute minefield as well, as to like, where are you going to hold your linen, your stock? Who is going to deliver it? Who is going to clean it? What happens if there's like a rip in a bed sheet? You will only find that when you start setting it up. Guest reviews are absolutely fundamental, actually. It's, if you get any element wrong of the property not being clean or not, if you haven't listed it well, you're not going to get much occupancy. So that's a silly investment mistake to make. Is why wouldn't you maximize on the opportunity of getting it listed, do good marketing and keep it fresh. But then the actual day-to-day management of it, if you get any element of that wrong, and the guest who has paid a substantial amount of money to stay in your property goes, well, that was a crap experience, what are they going to do? They're going to give you 1 star, 2 stars, whatever, and they're going to rant. This host did not fix my shower quick enough. We had a guy actually just last night. So this is how 24 hours it is. I picked up a message from our guest support team. This shower's not working. Now, this is a beachfront chalet. He's been surfing. He needs a shower. It's just, that's the worst feeling in the world, isn't it? You just been for a swim in the sea and your shower's broken.
Yeah.
We had an electrician there at 9 o'clock this morning, changing the shower unit, because that's how responsive. He was already talking about compensation, refunds, you name it. And we'd only just been made aware that there was an issue. So if your property then isn't becoming popular, you don't achieve superhost status. So then Airbnb does not promote your property. So again, you're losing revenue there as well. So there is, on a daily basis, there is something to be doing with your listing. Your cleaners turning up on time as well. That's another big one. We have an app so that the cleaners have to check in on that app, which checks in on our management system. And if they're not there within 15 minutes, it's a fail and they don't get paid. It's that serious. If a cleaner is 15 minutes late, we might be having to phone the next incoming guest. Well, not at the moment because there has to be a 24-hour window, but to say your check-in time has been delayed. So, how do you know your cleaner has been there? You need to make sure it's clean because you need that 5-star review to get you to superhost status, to promote your property, to get more money and get higher occupancy. So that's the biggest thing, I think, is people going, oh, I don't have time for this. I didn't realize it was going to be so much work. And I don't do this myself. So again, in complete philosophy of the Anonymous Landlord, I don't manage all of these properties just on my own as well. There's a massive team in London who support us with the revenue side of things, with dynamic pricing. And also there's a big team of guest support in the guest support team. So I don't take all these phone calls in the middle of the night, isn't it? One person physically couldn't manage a portfolio of Airbnb properties. It's a collaborative team effort. And as you say, everyone has their role and their responsibility and their process within that to make it as efficient as possible. And with efficiency comes profit. So yeah, God, I wouldn't do it myself.
It's like a whirlwind, isn't it? It's just a whirlwind of stuff. But look, it's like any investment. You could go into any type of investment in the world. The more money you're going to make from it, the higher the risk, the higher the effort required. And if you're smart about it, if you are anonymous about it, then you can have that strategically automated, systemized, managed, delegated, whatever. If you're not, then you'll get loads of money, but you'll be spending all of your time at all hours of the night and all hours of the day. So I'm with you. And that's kind of what this is about. The anonymous landlord is me in a way. And loads of people are anonymous landlords. I'm not saying I'm the only one, but the anonymous landlord came from me. And it's my philosophy in business and property and everything, really, because I want to spend more time doing what I want to do. Right? And, you know, I have people in my business, for an example, and everybody knows their role. So I don't have to get involved in the day-to-day because everybody knows their role. Same with property. It's all automated and delegated and maximized and systemized, and, you know, same for you. You know, you're not managing all those properties.
No, God no. No, it'd be it's too much. It's similar to long let in that regard, isn't it? That I will probably come on to it with licensing and things, but there's a lot to be doing there on a day-to-day basis in the legislation, and you know, making sure that you're up to date with everything. It's just as hard going. When something goes wrong, then you really feel the burn of being alone and without any support when you're a self-managing landlord. So totally agree. You really want to take that on.
Well, let's dive into that. Actually, you just, I mean, what a link. We should be on the radio, shouldn't we? That's a brilliant link. So, look, you're in Wales, where they've introduced a blanket across the board landlord license requirement. Now, in the UK, there are some councils that have adopted this now. I couldn't tell you how many councils it is, but it's growing. So it's coming to the UK. You've got it in Wales already. I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time on it, but I wanted to find out from you the good bits, the bad bits about landlord licensing, what you think it's about, why are they doing it, and what do you think is going to be the knock-on effect once we've got it across the whole country?
Okay. So landlord licensing, Rent Smart Wales it's called here, started in 2015. So we're pretty integrated with it now, shall we say. And I wholeheartedly support what they intended to achieve, which was to raise the standards of the rental sector by making sure that every letting agent and every landlord was educated to a certain level. Agents had to be having an extra course on top to pass the course, but in essence, every single landlord, without exception, if you are doing more than one element of property management or letting, you have to have a license. If you don't have to have a license, you still need to be registered. So that caused the first bit of confusion. Everyone's like, I need to be registered and licensed or just registered? I won't go into too much detail about that, but it was just the start of a very confusing transition period, shall we say. We had our license. We were one of the first agents in Wales to get the license, so we were very pleased about that. Awesome. And they will audit you within 2 weeks' notice. I guess that's the same with every sort of professional auditing system. And we did that over Christmas, and then going into COVID, we were just waiting and waiting for them to come back with our results, which was interesting. But again, we're one of the very few agents in the whole of Wales to get best practice. So again, I kind of live by my values, which are making sure that we do our jobs to the absolute best of our abilities. Landlords must have gone on this training course as well and passed the test to be a landlord. And a lot of people found that it was quite an easy online course that could be completed within a couple of hours with no experience. So that kind of had a really strange impact here in Wales, where we had a lot of landlords go, well, I'll just do it myself then. But a couple of years now down the road, we're finding that we're now taking on distressed landlords because they haven't kept their license conditions up to date. They have breached some of the licensing scheme. So we're talking unlimited fines, rent repayment orders, rent stopping orders, banning orders. There are hundreds and hundreds of landlords in Wales now who have tried to kind of do it themselves and really felt the burn of how you even couldn't have the concept of giving your rent back to the tenant because you didn't do something properly. It is mind-bending, like how the risk level that landlords have here in Wales who manage it themselves is massive. I've just put out my compliance checklist now, and there are landlords coming back to me going, God, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. Well, it's your job. You are running a business, and if you don't know this stuff and you put it into place, you are putting your business at risk. Why on earth would you even, why would you contemplate putting that level of risk? Oh, I didn't know. That's your job to know. It's my job to know, and I do know it because I got my best practice status with Rent Smart Wales. It is not a business if you don't run it the way it needs to be and you open yourselves up to all these unlimited fines and things. So we are seeing kind of a turn in sort of the average landlord, like the 1 or 2, 3 portfolio landlords, you know, the smaller. Oh, I like to be involved. I like speaking to my tenants. I like popping round for coffee. We're seeing a turn of them going, oh, do you know what? This is a bit too much. We've got the Renting Homes Act coming in next year, which in essence takes us away from the Housing and Tenants Act 1988. It doesn't exist here in Wales next year. No ASTs, no Section 8. I don't think anyone's going to have a Section 21 anyway. In fact, here in Wales, we will have an equivalent of a Section 21, whereas you guys in England won't. Anyway, there's a huge amount of change coming. And from my understanding of what's going to happen with English landlords is it's ROPA, isn't it? Yeah. It's so I think the English or the government have looked at Wales and gone, I think that test was a bit too easy.
Yeah.
I think it kind of didn't do what it was intended to do. And for English landlords to be educated and qualified, and I think that's the key thing, isn't it? In Wales, they are educated to a certain level, but in England, you have to be qualified to be a landlord, and that is going to be a massive disruptor to the industry. How they're going to police it, I have no idea. Policing anything like this here in Wales is very difficult. It's actually agents' responsibilities in a legal capacity to dob our landlords in. Yeah, so it's really a painfully awkward situation to be in.
And I don't think anybody has said dob for many, many years.
I'm an 80s kid. Yeah, that's what it feels like. You're dobbing your mates in.
I know, it's bad, isn't it? But okay, so what then? Look, we know this is coming, right? We know that ROPA, and by the way, ROPA is the regulation of property agents. And in a nutshell, it is coming. It means that anybody who has any dealing with the management of a property, not just letting agents, we're talking about landlords and landlords' assistants and landlords' teams, anybody who has a dealing with a tenancy and a property rental is going to have to be qualified. And they're talking about it being a technical level 3, aren't they? Which is a pretty big qualification. One of my guys is just going through it, and it's an 18-month study course.
Yeah.
So anyway, we know it's coming, and what, in your opinion, do you think landlords right now could do proactively to protect themselves from this? Apart from just bloody get an agent and stop being a tight ass.
Oh no, you just took it out.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
No, it's obvious. It's obvious. Yeah, I mean, gosh, if you're really like hell-bent on, carrying on with managing your portfolio, then you got to start educating yourself now. Get on a course, one that's going to give you like credits towards that level 3 qualification. You got to, go back to your university days where you were scheduling your time around your study, outside of family, outside of cooking dinners, doing the washing, running the business, doing your job. An hour a day, 2, 3, I think it's 6 hours a week they recommend,
right,
to pass this on a level 3. And that's not easy going when you got everything else to be juggling as well.
Do you know what's funny?
Great.
What's funny as well is that this subject, through the podcast, we've probably just lost half of our listeners, even though this is probably the most serious thing coming landlords' way. And I noticed that whenever I do a podcast that is about something a bit more serious, legislative and legal, then you can see when that people are aren't listening to all of it. Because I do believe that some landlords feel like, I'll be all right. I'll just do it the old-fashioned way, Hannah, we will call it a day there. Thank you ever so much for all of that.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Thank you. Yes, really good. Really good.
So thank you very much for joining me on this episode. And remember, if you want to be the best version of yourself at one thing, then you've got to be the best version of yourself at everything. And that doesn't mean go and be the best property investor in the world, because if you want to be the best property investor in the world, you have to invest in your mindset. You have to invest in your knowledge and your education and your self-development and your self-enjoyment. So if you want to be the best thing, the best version of yourself at one thing, be the best version of yourself at everything. My name's Tom Soane, and this is the Anonymous Landlord.